okay? And Yael, and of course her mother, who's back in the Golden Medina, the greatest country in the world, according to Donald Trump. I just happened to catch a video today, a very short one about, I don't even know who was speaking. Some guy was talking about Israel and game theory, and how of all the countries in the world, Israel is going to come out the most powerful and dominant of every country in the world. Why? Even though we're so small, because we're the only Western country that women are willing to have more than 2 kids. You know that the Western world, not just the Western world, most of the world, people were worried when I was younger about overpopulation. There'd be these TV shows and movies about everybody starving and there's no food and stuff like that. Now we have the opposite. There aren't going to be enough people to support the planet. And especially in countries like South Korea and Germany, where they just don't have enough children to repopulate and support the older generation. Of course, robots eventually will come and fill some roles, and AI and things like that. But what was this guy's theory? So he said, he was also an Asian guy, like with an Asian accent. He said, everybody tells me, yeah, but Israel, everyone hates Israel. And they commit genocide, and they're the worst of the worst. And he says, that's exactly why they're going to be the most successful country, because they know no one's going to help them. They're going to have to figure out everything on their own, and they're going to be the one country that figures it out. He said, I might be wrong, but according to my game theory, that's how it's going to work. So, it's not the shame. You hear good news. As great as America is, one day Israel might be greater. Who knows? Maybe Trump will move here. Okay, so we're continuing with lesson Ayin Chet, and we're getting very much towards the end. We're basically going to finish the lesson tonight. And then there's an addition from Reb Nassim. If we have time, we'll read it tonight. If not, we'll finish it quickly next week. So we're learning about creating the connection between the Shekhinah and Hashem, which is the finite presence of Hashem or the infinite presence of Hashem in a finite world, is a better way of saying it. That's the Shekhinah, and Hashem is the Ein Sof, is the infinite, and through us as Jews, davening, learning Torah, specifically through speech, since Hashem created the Jewish people through speech, and Malchut is connected to speech, and we're in the lowest of all worlds, and Malchut is the lowest of all levels. So when we create this unification with Hashem through our speech, we're uniting everything, bring it all up to the highest places. And he says eventually that's going to bring Moshiach. And what is Moshiach going to be? Moshiach is the revelation of Hashem in such a clear way that Hashem is no longer hidden in this world, that everybody sees what they didn't see before. That's essentially it. And how do we bring that about? Through our speech and our action, through davening and learning Torah. That's the overview of the lesson. After you explain that through using our speech for learning Torah and davening, we merit to have a unification between Hashem and the Shekhinah. And through this we merit to have Ruach HaKodesh, which Ruach HaKodesh means divine inspiration, and Kadosh and Zahav Hashem Melechem, and also Vital watches every week, and David and Chaya. Ruach HaKodesh, when you say like the rabbis that wrote the Halachot that eventually became Shulchan Aruch, they had Ruach HaKodesh. Like, how do we know what it means to keep kosher? Well, we have the oral law. We have the oral law for anything, but how do we know the fine details of everything? That we had rabbis that were on the level of Ruach HaKodesh, where they could see things, and the words that came out of their mouth were divinely inspired. But here, when he says Ruach HaKodesh, he's talking about the breath that we breathe in. We're actually breathing in Kodesh. When the air that comes in is now coming out as words of davening, you say Modani and whatever bracha you say, that's breathing in, Ruach, and coming out is Kodesh. And then we have the opposite, which is Ruach Shtut, which is the opposite when a person uses their life force for doing foolish things. So he says, by learning Torah, we're going to have Ruach HaKodesh. Shehi, Ruach HaChaim, which is the breath of life. Now he's going to explain, Shekoach Zeh, Zochim Gam L'Tchiyat HaMitim. That through this power we also merit to have Tchiyat HaMitim, which is the revival of the dead, U'Leviat HaMashiach Tzidkenu, and also to the coming of the righteous Messiah. So Tchiyat HaMitim doesn't always mean that you're dead and you're revived. It also means you're alive and you're revived. And that's the famous quote that I heard from Michael Abraham, who, by the way, moved to the neighborhood. I don't know if you know that. Well, an apartment in the neighborhood. Yeah. Yes. He said, quoting the Kotzker Rebbe, and the Kotzker, everybody likes to quote the Kotzker for their favorite quote, whether it's really the Kotzker or not, that Tchiyat HaMeitim is easy, reviving the dead is easy, Tchiyat HaChaim, that's what's hard. Reviving those that are alive. So when you say, I'm alive, but are you really alive? Do you have Tchiyat HaChaim? Okay, fine, you're alive. I have a friend I saw the other day who's had many, many years of very difficult times, and unfortunately he's not doing better. But I saw him the other night and I said shalom to him, and he said shalom to me back, and I really felt like he's on life support. Like the guy's life is just bum, 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 and he's just like barely getting by, barely breathing. So you can be alive and not be alive. And so getting Ruach HaKodesh is what raises you up. It's a sense of Tchiyat HaMeitim, of reviving the dead, even when you're still alive. Ruach HaKodesh is b'chinat Tchiyah Gamken. And also, that's what I said, getting this divine inspiration, but through our Torah learning and davening, is also a type of revival. As Rashi explained regarding Bereshit, וידברו עליו את כל דברי יוסף וכולי וירא את העגלות. So this is when the brothers came back from Egypt and they told Yaakov the words that Yosef said, and he saw the agalot. So this is a famous Torah from Rashi. Right, we know that the wagons from Egypt came, and agalah is egra arufa, which is a sacrifice that's brought. So if, let's say there's a line dividing two towns, and a person is found dead, which community is responsible for his death? So they measure it, and the one that's closest, that community has to do an atonement. They have to bring a sacrifice. That's the egla arufa. And what is their transgression? That a person came through their town and they didn't feed him or give him a place to stay, and that's why he ended up dying. So this was the Torah that Yosef and Yaakov were learning together when Yosef was thrown into the pit and then sold into slavery and disappeared. So when Yosef sent the Agalot back, it was a sign that he remembered the Torah that they were learning, and it was also a sign that even in Egypt, you can close the door if it bothers you.
Just thinking if it's alive now.
If there's what?
If it's alive now.
Alive.
Awesome.
It's a sign that he didn't forget the Torah even though he was in Egypt. So that what happened was when Yaakov, who was kind of in this depression for many years, he couldn't be consoled over Yosef's death. When they say, Yosef's alive, he didn't believe them until first he saw the Agalot, he saw the wagons, and then he understood that this was a sign for the Torah that they were learning. So the words of the Torah gave him Ruach HaKodesh, which was Ruach HaChaim, gave him back the spirit of life and brought him back to life. And then we know that Yaakov said that his best days were his days when he was reunited with his family in Egypt, which is always a confusing thing. How can you have had to leave the land of Israel and you say that it's your best days? But he also had prophecy, he could see the future. And I guess Hashem had told him, you're going to see your offspring survive exile. And here he's seeing his grandsons, Ephraim and Manasseh, that he's able to bless and that they're prospering even in the exile. So maybe that's why those were his best years. Okay, so Vayidabru alav et kol divrei Yosef v'chule v'yaw et ha'agalot. So he saw the wagons. Asher shalach Yosef laset oto, which Yosef has sent to carry his father and the whole family. V'tiyeh ruach Yaakov. V'tchi, I can't see this. V'tchi ruach Yaakov. And it brought back the life to Yaakov. She'sharta alav ruach HaKodesh, that the spirit of holiness came back into him. She'perusha mimenu, that had left him. Harei al yedei ruach HaKodesh zacha Yaakov l'tchia. So the point is that through getting this spirit, this breath of holiness, it brought life back into him. So we understand he was depressed over his son being murdered. Then he finds out that he wasn't murdered, that he's the viceroy of Egypt, that he keeps Torah, that he has a prosperous family, that everyone's going to be saved. All of this brings him back. There was somebody, wasn't related to me, but somehow related to me through a family member. So it was a young man. He ended up dying at 47, but he was from a very wealthy family and had quite a lot of money on his own. And he got sick and was in the hospital again and again and again. And then he inherited $15 million. And I knew him through my father. And my father said, well, he's doing great now. Like, he has all this energy. And he's now doing sports and he's going skiing. And I was davening for this guy like every day until he died. And I said, well, what happened? He said, when you inherit $15 million, you get a lot of energy. So that's also Tchiyat Meitim in a sense. But here we're talking about in a spiritual way. I guess money can also be spiritual if it's used in a positive way. Unfortunately, in that family, wow, what a disaster that money was. What a disaster. Really just, it took their lives and emptied it out. All the meaning just went into alcohol and drugs and fancy homes and fancy cars and parties and restaurants, and it was like nothing. And this is a Jewish family. Really a tragedy. So it can be Tchiyat HaMeitim. It can also be I guess, Lekadem HaMeitim. I don't know what the, move you forward to death. Okay. V'ruach HaKodesh zeu b'china shel Moshiach. And having Ruach HaKodesh is also an aspect of Moshiach. Ki katuv atzlo, because it's written about Moshiach in Yeshaya, v'herichu b'yirat Hashem, that he'll be able to smell the awe of Hashem. Lo mareh einav yishpot v'chulei v'lo lemishma oznav yochiach. So how is Moshiach going to judge? He's not going to judge through what he sees through his eyes or what he hears through his ears. He's going to judge through smell, which that's something we definitely don't have today. You don't go in front of a judge and the judge goes, guilty, innocent. But that's going to be the level of Moshiach. Do you remember? I don't remember which Rebbe it is. Maybe you remember. One of the big Rebbes, they said to him, Moshiach is here. And he opens the window and he says, Moshiach is not here. And they said to him, how do you know that Moshiach is not here? He said, in my room when I'm learning Torah, it's the smell of Moshiach. If Moshiach was here, I'd open the window and it would smell the same outside. So he also had obviously a level of Moshiach. So he's not going to judge through speech or through hearing or through seeing. Ella hakol beruach hakodesh, but everything through. So the word ruach hakodesh, has multiple levels. Through the breath, in a sense, and the spirit of holiness. Ki yuchal al yidei ruach hakodesh lishpot v'ladat mi chayav u'mi zakai. And he'll know through the breathing in the holiness who is guilty and who is innocent. Vehatam, and the reason shemashiach ubchinat ruach kodesh, that Mashiach is connected to the spirit of holiness. Ki azai bezman she'yavo Mashiach yitukan partzuf malchut habinyan haruchani shel sfirat malchut b'shleimut. Because when Mashiach comes, we're going to have a fixing of what's called the face of malchut, which is the spiritual construct of the attribute of malchut in its entirety. Meaning that right now we don't see Hashem, but we're going to see Hashem very clearly, all the time. Imagine that there's signs. There's constantly signs that were in front of you, but you didn't see them until afterwards. Actually, that's the story that I'm going to tell today. See, there's Ruach HaKodesh for the stories. And then afterwards, you go back and you say, all the signs were there. Everything was so clear. So instead of seeing it in hindsight, we're going to see it clearly in a forward way. V'nitkabet kol habchinat malchut el shorsho. And then all of the attributes of malchut are going to be gathered together and returned to its root. V'tetzei hashchina b'chol b'chinoteha me'agalut. And the Shechina will come out in all of its aspects from the exile. Right? You understand, when we say that the Shechina is in exile, we mean that Hashem's presence is denied. But when Hashem's presence is revealed, that's when the Shechina is out of exile. Ki ya'alu kol nitzotzot ha'kedusha shel malchut lemekomam v'shorsham. Because all of the sparks, the holy sparks of malchut, will come out of their places and be returned to their proper place and root. V'al yedei zeh yizkeh Mashiach, and through this we'll merit to have Mashiach, lekabel et b'chinat ruach hakodesh, that will be able to receive the true breathing in of holiness, v'nimshechet misfirat malchut, that comes from, is drawn from the attribute of malchut, v'yitkayem hakatuv v'ayeta la'Hashem hamlucha. And then it will come about, as it was prophesied in Ovadia, and Hashem had a kingship. Someone's here. Hello. No problem. Okay. Hashem will have a kingship. V'ken akatuv aya Hashem lemelech an kol haaretz. And then Hashem will be the ruler over all of the earth. In Targum, Yonatan says, "V'tigale malchut Hashem bekarov al kol yoshvei haaretz, v'tiyeh malchut Hashem leolam uleolei olamim." And then Hashem's presence will be revealed to everyone who is here on earth, and he'll be a kingship, and Hashem will rule forever from that time on. So what does this mean? Right now Hashem is ruling, but Hashem is, that expression of Hashem in this world is not present. Right? If somebody comes to the class and he says, well, you guys are saying some really interesting philosophical stuff, but I don't believe in God. I don't think any of this stuff is true. Prove it to me. You can't prove to somebody that there's God. They have to decide that they're going to believe that there's God. You can give all kinds of explanations, what's love? What's making you breathe? What is a baby? How is a baby made? How come we're not making babies just in sacks in a laboratory from nothing? You can still take an egg and sperm and stick it in a sack and maybe grow something. But there's all kinds of things that we can't answer. We can't answer why do good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. There's all these things, and so a person will say, I don't believe in God. It doesn't exist. Now, when we reach this level that Hashem is finally revealed, in a sense, like the world is turned inside out. Now the world is this vacant space, but then the vacant space will be the other way around, and everything that's on the outside will be revealed on the inside, and we'll see Hashem's presence all the time, and nobody will have any questions. That's the meaning of we'll reach this level. How do we reach that? We reach it by revealing the Shekhinah again and again and again. We do that through using our speech and our breath to learn Torah and to daven, and that creates the unification of the Shekhinah and Hashem in this world until eventually we reach the tipping point when Moshiach is revealed and everybody sees that what we thought was real was not actually real, that this world is just a construct in order for Hashem to give us free will until Moshiach comes. Once Moshiach comes, we won't have the same level of free will. And that's an explanation, at least of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, why Moshiach hasn't come yet. Shalom Aleichem to Ron and to Chaya. The Rebbe says Moshiach won't come. This explains why there's all the Chabad houses around the world. Because Hashem cares. Hashem wants us to still do mitzvot. When Mashiach comes, there won't be so many mitzvot to do and there won't be free will anymore. But now we can choose to keep Shabbos, we can choose to keep kosher, we can choose to do all of the mitzvot. That is a greater kindness than Mashiach coming. Even though you'll meet people, I've met many people, that all they say all the time is, oh, Mashiach has to come now. Mashiach should have been here by now. How can we wait another second? How can we live without Mashiach? Well, if Mashiach comes right now, there are going to be a lot of people that didn't get a chance to do tshuva. So which is kinder? Mashiach coming because you can't take it anymore? Or Mashiach waiting for people to do tshuva? So the Rebbe says, Hashem wants to send Mashiach right now, but there's still people that need to do tshuva. So we need to turn the world upside down, get everyone to do tshuva, so that Hashem will send Mashiach. And even if it means that Mashiach comes 1 second sooner than Mashiach would have come, if we didn't have all the Chabad houses in the world, it was worth it. That's the Rebbe's philosophy. Because you could just say, well, if Mashiach is going to come, what's the big deal? We'll just wait. Right? It's coming in the year 6000. That's not so far from now. I don't know. But do we know really that 6,000 is human years, regular years? We say 1 year for Hashem, 1 year for us is 1,000 years for Hashem. What are the dinosaurs? How big is the universe? Is it expanding, contracting? How does that fit into 5,800 whatever years? What are we in? 5'8"? What are you in? 5'8"? 5'7", 6'5", 8'6". I don't know. I get it confused. I don't follow the Hebrew years, so I get it confused. Whatever it is, it doesn't make sense. But when Hashem reveals Himself, it will make sense. It's all we're going to see, and so it's kind of a debate. Like, is it better for Hashem to send Mashiach now? Like, is that the bigger kindness, or is it a bigger kindness to not send Mashiach now? Like, to want Mashiach to come, to want to reach your highest spiritual place, to want everyone to reach their highest spiritual place, but don't send Mashiach yet. We're not ready. So it's like this, contradiction. Yevayahu now is going to explain Shal Yedei B'yat Mashiach, that through the coming of Mashiach, Yituknu Ma'aseinu V'Tigale HaMalchut B'lo Tzimtzum. That through us bringing Mashiach, we're going to fix all of our actions in this world, and we're going to reveal the Malchut, which is Hashem without any constriction, without anything covering up Hashem. So we know that Ein Sof, infinite can't reveal itself in this world. So this world has to have the appearance of being finite. But when Moshiach comes, the infinite is going to be revealed. And when a person gets to the world to come, this is what we're going to experience. We don't know what it means in this world, but the soul is going to experience the infinite. We've never experienced anything infinite. No human being has ever experienced anything infinite. You could set a computer with I think it's just the water there, with like the greatest capacity to count to infinity, and it will never reach infinity. So in this physical world, we can never reach Ein Sof. But when the soul crosses out of this world, it's going to experience the Ein Sof, which is something that we probably experienced before our soul came into this world, but we don't know right now. But when Mashiach comes, it's going to be revealed to us in this world in a physical body, which is like totally mind-blowing stuff. We're going to be able to know our Creator above all of the worlds, without any enclothing, shape, or picture. כי כל העולמות העליונים הם לבושים וצמצומים לאורו של הקדוש ברוך הוא עצמו. All of these supernal worlds that we're talking about, Asiya and Bria, Yetzira and Atzilut, and we talk about all of the Sfirot from Keter to Malchut, all of these are livushim, in clothing, or tzimtzumim, contractions. But when Hashem finally reveals Himself, it's going to be like the analogy. We have the analogy of the Matrix. We have the analogy of the Wizard of Oz, where the person behind it all isn't revealed to you, and then when it's revealed to you, all of a sudden you see things in a different way. Shehu Or Ein Sof, which is the infinite light, bli shum gvul ubli atchala v'sof, without any limitation, without any beginning or end. Achen, and so kol tzimtzum zeh, all of this contraction, nitzrach davka kshe'olam eino metukan kamo shetzarich, is needed only when the world is not fixed as it needs to be. V'lo yecholim lekabel malchuto, and we're not able to receive Hashem's kingship or light. Ulam bezman biat Mashiach, but when Mashiach comes, kulanu nitkadesh, we're all going to be on this level of kodesh, of holiness, ad shelo nitzarech et tzimtzum ha'olamot, so that we won't need Hashem to be constricted or contracted for us. ונוכל להכיר את השם יתברך כיצד הוא מתגלה קודם צמצום העולמות. And we're going to be able to see Hashem in the same way that Hashem was revealed before the creation of all the worlds. היינו קודם שמתלבש בלבוש, that is before Hashem enclothed Himself, ציור תמונה, in any shape or form. וזהו הכתוב, and this is what's written in Tehillim, כי השם V'chulei melech gadol on kol haaretz. That Hashem will be this great king that's ruling over the whole world. Hainu shemidat malchut, that is the attribute of malchut. Yeh gadol, shezel b'chinat melech gadol, will be great, which is the aspect, which means the great king, meaning that Hashem's presence will be revealed in such a great way. V'yitale ora mechemat tikun ma'asenu. And the great light of the Shechina will be revealed through fixing our actions. Hameverer et nitzotzei sfirat hamalchut hamitpazrim begalut, that elevate the sparks of the attribute of malchut, which are spread out in the exile. Va'azai nuchal la'akir et boreinu an kol. And then we're going to be able to acknowledge our Creator in every way. Tahainu Lamala mikol ha'olamot, that is above all of the worlds. Shehem tzimtzumim v'levushim lo yitbarach, which are constrictions and contractions and clothing of Hashem's light. V'lo kamo achshav, and it won't be like now. Ki achshav hu behitlabshut olamot v'kanan. Now Hashem is enclothed in all of the worlds above us, as we mentioned above. So right now Hashem is not revealed. When Hashem will be revealed, we'll be able to experience Hashem as Hashem truly is. We won't even need to say the word Hashem. We won't need to call Hashem He or she or worlds or any of these things, and it's something that we simply can't understand when we're in this world. Because if we did, we wouldn't be in this world. We couldn't be in this world. That's also the story of Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis that went into this high meditation, that 3 of them didn't survive for one reason or another. One went crazy, one became a heretic, and one died. And Rabbi Akiva was the only one that went in and came out. This is called the Pardes. And he said, when we get to the Even Shtia, when we get to the foundation stone, where there's a water there, he said, Maim. That's his secret code. That the Torah that you see in the world to come and the Torah that you see in this world are the same Torah, even though they seem different. So we can't understand the Torah of the world to come and be in this world. We're not on that level. Even these great rabbis were not on that level. Only Rabbi Akiva was. Yevaer now is going to explain Ketzad nirmazim bebchinot hanal bepasuk shehevi beptichat haTorah. Now he's going to explain how everything we learned was explained in that first verse that he opened up with. V'zeu haramuz b'pasuk, and this is what's hinted at in the verse. Yitein ozne lemalko. He's going to give power to his kingship. Vayarem keren Mashiach, and he's going to raise up the light of his Moshiach. Hainu sheyiten ha'adam oz ve'ha'ara midat ha'malchut, that Hashem will give human beings the strength and the inspiration that will be put into the attribute of Malchut, al yedei sheyitvadeh lifnei Hashem b'chol libo, through a person admitting their transgressions with a full heart in front of Hashem, v'yitaken et hadibor, and they'll fix their speech, shu b'chinat Malchut, which is connected to Malchut. Why is speech connected to Malchut? Because the king rules through speech. Ubezeh hu oseh yichud kucha v'yichud shchintei, and this is how a person creates the unification between Hashem and the Shekhinah. She'al yedei zeh zocheh leb'chinat ruach hakodesh, and through this a person merits to have ruach hakodesh, the breath or spirit of holiness, a Zion, and as a result, vayarem keren Mashiach, he's going to raise up the light of Mashiach. Ki kol achad yiteken b'bchinat Mashiach shelo, because everybody's going to fix their attribute of Mashiach. Achelek sheyesh lo bekomat Mashiach, the part that everybody has in the structure that is Mashiach. Right? You've seen pictures like of the Mona Lisa with a million tiny little pixels of people's faces. Have you ever seen something like that? Or you can imagine it. So imagine you see like this picture, and then you zoom in, and as you zoom in, you realize that it's millions of people's like passport photos. So that's what he's talking about here. Mashiach is a compilation of all of the actions that we did in this world. In order for Mashiach to be there, we have to do what we have to do. Hashayach lenishmato. So everybody has their own special task. What's right for one person is not right for the other. Bibchinat karova el nafshi ge'ala. That what's close to my soul is what will bring redemption. Mashiach lashon Masiach ilmim, and Mashiach is connected to the meaning of speech of those who can't speak. Hainu sheyitaken kol achad b'bchinat dibor shelo. That is, everybody should fix. I keep looking for the clock over here because it's usually over there. Everybody should fix their speech. Dahainu sheyelo dibor metukan bevidui dvarim. That a person should fix their speech through the admitting their transgressions by davening and by learning Torah. Torah tefillah. V'yalech min madriga madriga ma'at ma'at. Hainu, and a person should go from level to level very, very slowly. That is to say, she'kol tikun dibor hu metaken, that everything that a person fixes in their speech, umotzi chelkei amalchut shayu b'galut. They take out little pieces of the malchut that were stuck in exile. B'bchinat ne'elamti dumiyah. An aspect of that, if I understand this correctly, that I stood there speechless. The B'chinat Olam Dibor, that's connected to the world of speech, Shehu B'chinat Sfirat Malchut, which is connected to the attribute of Malchut, עד שיתקן הערת פרצוף מלכות בשלמות, until we fix entirely the face of Malchut in a complete way. וזהו בחינות Moshiach kanan, and this is the attribute of Moshiach as mentioned above. כי עניין Moshiach hu legalot ha-Malchut. What is the idea of Moshiach? Is to reveal Malchut Hashem, Hashem's presence, bechirut v'zachut, in a clear and present way, ba'olam u'me'an kol ha'olamot, in this world and the worlds, and above all the worlds above us. v'davar zeh na'aseh rak an yedei ha'arat partzuf malchut b'shleimut kanan. And this is only done by elevating this level of malchut in this world, meaning that our actions, our speech are what makes this happen, and by us doing it again and again and again, that's what's going to eventually bring Moshiach. Now, a person could be inspired by this, a person could feel like, forget it, it's never going to happen. You know, you keep telling me Moshiach is going to come, so I'm pushing. I'm going to do as many mitzvot as I can. I'm going to be out on the street all day long trying to get people to do mitzvot. I'm going to stay up all night long. I'm going to just push. And at some point, the person is going to totally collapse, and they're going to say, forget it, Mashiach is not going to come. But that's not what he said here. He said, Yelech me'madriga ma'at. Everybody should go from one spiritual level to the next very slowly. So, and he also talked about people in a previous lesson that don't get a chance to drink. Slow down and take a break. They get obsessive about this. Everything has to be in moderation, one step at a time. So every prayer that you say, don't look to say, it'd be like somebody who's on a diet and every day they get on the scale. Oh, I lost weight, I gained weight, I lost weight, I gained weight. You can't do that. It's like if you invest in the S&P 500 and you check it every day, then you're going to go out of your mind. But if you check it every year, it might not be so bad. Because that thing takes a long time to move up and down until it gets where it needs to go. But if you just look at it from 1960 till 2026, you'll see it went like this. It had a few of these along the way, but it went up. So we can't be like, we have to get to Moshiach like this. Which I've met people like this. The problem is not Moshiach, the problem is them. Like they have emotional problems or psychological problems, and they just happen to discover Mashiach, so now everything is great because all I want is Mashiach. Mashiach. There have been people that call him Mashiach now. And what if he's not here now? Chill out. But I think people took the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was really just trying to inspire people. I think they took it in a wrong way. That the Rebbe meant that we need to do the work that we have to do, but not turn it into like some sports team where you answer the phone and you say, Beitar Yerushalayim. But that wasn't the intention. The intention is do what we have to do the work that we have to do, and Mashiach is going to come. So there's an addition here from Reb Nassan that I think we'll read. It's always good to read from Reb Nassan. Basically, what he says here, I'm going to summarize it in like 1 minute, just so we'll have it in mind for next week, that we should remember that when we do a transgression, the Shekhinah is with us, meaning Hashem is with us. So when a person says, I'm going to go to some really disgusting place and do some disgusting thing, the life force that's bringing you there is Hashem. So you're bringing Hashem there. And this is one of the Torahs that Reb Nassan and Rabbi Nachman have talked about many times before. But he says, but know, if you're still alive and you know that you're alive, then you should know that the life force is from Hashem. And that same life force can pull you out of the place that you brought yourself into. So that's more or less what he's going to say here, after he has a little criticism of the Hasidim, because he says they didn't put this Torah together in the right way. I don't know why he didn't just put it together in the right way. He's the one who put together Likutey Moharan. So I guess he was just trying to be very faithful to the source. We'll ask him in Olam Haba. Okay, so one of the reasons I was late is I tried to leave my office at 7:30, and at like 7:30 I realized I didn't have a story. So I go to Rabbi Yerachmiel Tillis of Ascent. He has like 2,000 stories in this archive online. So I literally randomly click, click. And if it's long, like too long, click, click. And then I find this one-page story. Okay, it's actually a good story. Quite happy with it. It'll be on the podcast eventually. Who knows how long that'll take. I say that in it's been years and I haven't even put up all the stories I told here. So the way the Melamdim, the Torah teachers, would get paid in the old days, this is the time of the Tzemach Tzedek, who's the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, and when the years of the Tzemach Tzedek, I don't remember, I'd have to look it up. Probably the mid-1800s. And so this Melamed would get paid 75 kopecks, which wasn't even a ruble, for an entire year, for half a year.
I was like, that's impressive for long.
No, half a year. But it was like a reasonable salary at the time, in 1850.
Nothing changed in Russia.
Okay. So he would get paid per student, I think it doesn't say here. Anyhow, and it would be half a year study, and the parents would pay when they would come to pick up their boys for the break. So I guess there were a few boys. He didn't just get paid 75 kopecks for the entire 6 months that he was teaching. But in between, so he would get paid, but in between, he wouldn't have enough money. He got to the point where he was constantly desperate for money, and he didn't know where to turn. So he goes to the Tzemach Tzedek, and he says to the Rebbe, I'm a Melamed, I'm doing my best, but I don't have any money. Can you lend me some money? So the Rebbe gave him a ruble, which would be, I guess, 100 kopecks, I'm assuming. And the Rebbe said to him, but make sure that you give it back to me only at the end of the term. Don't return it early. So he says, don't worry, Rebbe, no problem. But it was so much money for him. I guess let's say it was $1,000 today, $1,000 bill. And he had to get change, so he could spend 50 cents and $1. Wouldn't spend all the money in one shot. So there was a local fair in Lubavitch. People would come with tents, merchants would come and sell their merchandise a few days a week. And he went to the fair with his kopek, and he goes to one of the goyim, and he says, can you change this for me? And the guy takes out some change, and he puts it on the table, but he leaves the kopek there. And he says, get out of here. And so he takes the money, and he sees that the Rebbe's kopek is still sitting there. So he's looking at it, and he's like, I'm not going to take your money, Jew, get out of here. So he takes the kopek, and he goes to the next merchant. And he says, can you change this kopek for me? And he puts the change on the table, and then the Jew says, aren't you going to take the kopek? He said, I'd never take that disgusting thing from a disgusting Jew like you. What do you think I am? I have some self-respect. So he takes all the change and the kopek. So he goes to another merchant, and he shows him the kopek, and the same thing happens, and the merchant says, get out of the way, you're bothering me. People want to buy things here. So he figured, okay, now he's got 3 kopeks plus the Rebbe's kopek, 3 kopeks and change. And I'm not kopek, 3 rubles, I keep saying kopek, 3 rubles and change in kopeks, and then he has the original ruble. So he figures, okay, I'll pay back the Rebbe now. Instead of waiting till the end of the term, he goes and he gives it back to the Rebbe. The Rebbe says to him, you fool, I told you at the end of the term to return the ruble, not to return it now. And he took the ruble back, and he understood that the Rebbe had given him a blessing, a ruble that no goy would ever take, but that could buy whatever he wanted. And, that poor guy, what can I say? He didn't know this story. Had he known the story, he would have followed the Rebbe's instructions. And the Rebbe couldn't say to him, I'm going to give you a ruble that will make you rich. But we can learn from that story. And hopefully when Hashem sends us rubles that can make us rich, we'll remember not to return them to the Rebbe until the term is over. So shkoyach everyone for sticking around.